Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here, getting ready to wind down for the night. And today I've got Excalibur number 60. I'm kind of mixed on this comic. This is kind of the stuff I never liked from 90s era comics, but there are some interesting and instructive moments from this. On several different topics. So, thing number one is, just looking at the front, ignore, the characters and some of the info that you might get from the title. So you've got a jungle man and you've got a pretty girl and he's carrying her over his shoulder, but she's kind of smiling, letting us know that she's not too distressed about this situation. So my first thought when looking at this was, gee, it's almost as if the healthy male fantasy of the vast majority of men to be strong and to be a protector and to be perceived as a provider, that it's almost as if that overlaps with what a vast majority of women look for in a man, and vice versa, that a vast majority of women want to be the kind of beautiful, caring woman that a man would love and enjoy being with. It's almost as if that fantasy has nothing to do with patriarchy or a boys' club. It's almost as if that's a near universal human desire that describes the vast majority of people on Earth. But that just could be my white, cis, heteronormative male patriarchy privilege talking. Anyhow, what I like about this is a lot was communicated to me through, just little comments and dialogue to help me piece together some things that were hard to get without a 2-page splash page summing up everything. This was almost complicated enough I could have used some of that, just like a box at the beginning saying, here's what happened, here's what's going on. Yet they were still able to communicate it to me so that I could use the process of elimination to figure some things out. So it opens up with Kitty Pryde Shadowcat saying, we're the all new, all different Excalibur. But Captain America's quizzical, and then Iron Man and Black Panther are both saying, we've got no clue who Excalibur is. So I've immediately been introduced to the idea that they're in kind of a weird situation where they're trying to brass it out. And here's the thing. So you have to use process of elimination to figure out who's who. You see Nightcrawler and her later. You know that Captain Britain is trapped in a little hut, and he can't show himself right now because that could reveal his secret identity, which is why he ends up dressing as a caveman later. Braddock of the Jungle, that's Captain Britain. We all know, any X-Men fan knows Shadowcat. So who's this? Well, that's probably her there, that's her there. But then who's this? And then I realized something because of the dialogue Captain America's thinking, and he deduces based on her being the dress the same as Braddock's assistant that she's the shapeshifter called Megan, which means that Megan has shapeshifted to look like a local resident of Wakanda. Oh boy, remember when all the SJWs were writing articles about digital blackface on salon.com or BuzzFeed or whatever? I need some help. I need help knowing is this cultural appropriation or is this 90s comic blackface? I see so much social justice in this comic, guys. So much social justice, progressivism in this one. Yeah, so pretty much it's what's being implied here is that the lily white, blonde-haired, beautiful Megan, who has shape-shifting powers, has transformed into a black woman for the purpose of fitting in amongst the locals and infiltrating Wakanda, right? And all of this was communicated to me through some dialogue comments. I'm not big on this kind of 90s elongated style. I see it as connected to the history of mannerism, where the mannerist idea of beauty seemed to be making everyone extra long beyond the bounds of what a human could be, and somehow that, extra long legs, extra long torsos, extra long necks, kind of a small skull, but not as bad as some 90s art I've seen. The penciler here is, I think, Scott Collins. I am really happy in the modern era that they give me a little bit more information about who did what, because I don't know what this means. I'd have to get a lot more, get good in my knowledge of the 90s Marvel industry to identify everyone here and to kind of use the process of deductive reasoning to figure out who did what. I like nice clean labels telling me who's doing what. So this wooden guy called Icon is trying to take over Wakanda through hostile takeover. Captain Britain is stuck and he's struggling with his powers. And meanwhile, Cerise and Nightcrawler are on their own adventure with this Don Quixote-esque character who calls himself the Knight Errant. And let's see. Captain Britain makes his daring escape. Shadowcat blasts herself with a gun as part of a gambit that she's doing. And boy, I don't know. This is fan service, right? Like, they never show anything graphic or like, man, approved by the Comics Code of Authority? Yeah, approved by the Comics Code of Authority. So I think that I don't think they're suggesting that she's running around half naked. I think they're just suggesting that she's in a shirt, and that makes it a little fan servicey. So that's kind of an example of something that's breaking me out of the story a bit, because it feels a little cheesecake that they're doing that. But whatever. Oh, I hate this face. Not everything in the 90s was good, guys. Oh, Shadowcat. All right. So the Nightcrawler they continue their fight with the Don Quixote character, and then Braddock, Captain Britain, needing to protect his secret identity, shows up kind of dressed as a caveman. So this is one problem with this cover is that you don't see Megan in this form as the blonde-haired girl, and you don't see Captain Britain with blonde hair. You see him with kind of muddy brown hair. So that adds a little to the confusion of trying to piece together the story. But this is a symbolic cover. Something like this happens within the context of the story. So Captain Britain's starting to figure out that there's something wrong with his powers. Clearly all the money went into this shot, and then hot trash here, and they're already starting to do some copy-pasty stuff that I don't dig in our era, and I don't dig back then either. He gets his name roasted a bit, and he's trying to, on the fly, play the Tarzan character. And, this is romantic, right? Captain Britain's playing kind of the savage, heroic ape man, and Megan is clearly digging that vibe that he's given off, that alpha male vibe. This Icon villain is so goofy in how he looks and how he's drawn. Long thought process, so I don't go on another needless tangent. I don't know, this Knight Errant guy is kind of fun. I mean, he's clearly just Don Quixote as the inspiration for him, that he's a millionaire old guy who goes out and has adventures and actually seems to be pretty good at finding terrorists and nuclear weapons. So Nightcrawler figures that if he's crazy, the world needs more crazy people. So, that's kind of fun. I really love I kind of love Don Quixote. I read Don Quixote in high school, and I didn't like it that much back then, but I've kind of, over time, come to appreciate Don Quixote as a character more and more, and his influence on the heroic character. Go read Cyrano de Bergerac sometime. If you like heroic characters, that is one heck of a play. It's funny, it's tragic, and the reason I was reminded of it is Don Quixote inspired the author of Cyrano de Bergerac, and there's this whole interesting debate about what was the meaning of the Don Quixote novel. Was it meant to be kind of a heroic tale where you would admire Don Quixote in spite of his madness, or was it kind of a comedy that's making fun of British chivalry? I've always been interested in how the character of Don Quixote has been interpreted in musicals and in plays through the years. But anyway, back to our fight. The Icon seems to be kind of flustered and nervous and not kind of hustling to get the superheroes defeated really quick. Okay, this is what I really want to talk about, the bullpen bulletins. So this comic, you can get it in Marvel Unlimited. I don't think they let you buy the digital issue all by itself. This is the kind of thing I'm almost positive that they wouldn't include in a digital comic, and I would be an advocate for, you obviously can't include every ad, but I would be an advocate for including this stuff and all the letters columns from these old comics, because they are so significant to the character of these comics and communicating to you good information about the industry and what was going on over at the Marvel Comics office, right? So this is announcing a whole bunch of weddings that Marvel Comics people were getting up to, and I'm not going to read them because a lot of them are just names in the books they worked on and details about their wedding, but I did notice a couple really interesting things if I can find them. This one, was there one other? So a rash of weddings. All right, so this is the main one I was looking at. Fabian's nomad editor, Glenn Helium Herdling, seems to have found religion. Not only is he writing Paragon for our new religious comics line, when I first saw that, I thought about it, and I thought, wow, that's weird. And then something clicked, and I remembered, oh yeah, I've got the old Screw Tape Letters comic by Marvel Comics. It's out of print. It's really hard to get these days, and I really dig it. So I've got to go find that and share it with you guys, because that's an interesting little piece of Marvel history there. The Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis, his famous book where he kind of entered into the imagination of a devil character named Wormwood, and Wormwood would write letters to his nephew Screwtape on how to be a good demon. It's a fascinating book. I can't wait to dig out the comic for you guys. Okay, but that's only thing number one I noticed. So, Glenn Herdling takes his fiancée up in a helium balloon, and then he presents her with a comic book, What If number 31, and within that comic book is a proposal. What? I want to go check that out. That's one heck of a story. Does that mean he just put a little proposal in the physical comic book, or he actually wrote a proposal within the comic book and got it published? I mean, it's kind of cheesy, but that's kind of romantic if you do Marvel Comics, and especially if she's interested in Marvel Comics. I bet that she said yes. Something worked there. I thought I saw one more thing I was really interested in. Oh, well, but the point I'm trying to make is that there are interesting stories in this stuff, and these have a historical significance. If you want to know about, the age of Marvel Comics before you were alive, what was it like to be alive then? What was it like to read these comics which may have existed before you were alive? This kind of stuff is important to have. Man, I love my CD collection of, the Spider-Man comics so much because I got all the ads with them and all the letters to the editor. It's impractical for them to, probably put everything back together. I don't know. Even if it was only for geeks like me, I'd love for them to have historical editions where they reprint the comics along with the ads and the goofy stuff that went along with them back when they were originally published, just so that, kind of for my inner art history geek, so that I can understand everything about how the comic looked like in the hands of the person who first held it or held reprints of it over the years. I don't know. That's a pipe dream. That's one of the reasons why I'm so interested in floppies, is I have this kind of obsessive art historical geek desire to know about these kind of things, and the floppies give me that kind of thing. So that's some motivation for me to make my first $1 million, my small loan of $1 million, and then grow that until I've got Donald Trump Bank, because then I can collect old comic books and find out that kind of stuff for myself. That's my delayed gratification for being smart with my money, is I'll get to read old comic books and see that stuff. So the superhero battle ends, and Icon collapses in grief, and they kind of notice how he seems to have accepted defeat really quickly, and he admits that he was a scientist who only had an hour, essentially, before the powers wore off, and I guess he died. And there was like an isolationism, expansionism political subtext to this, but it was only a political subtext. I didn't read this as a political commentary on the value of, on the merits of isolationism versus interventionism whatsoever. Right? They mention the words, but this feels apolitical because, who cares about their politics, and they clearly don't care that much about making a political statement either. It was a subtext to create a conflict, to create a story. It wasn't a comment on either this guy being the bad guy or T'Challa being the evil weirdo who needs to be more isolationist. It was apolitical. It had a political subtext to it, but it wasn't political. It wasn't preaching to me any kind of position. So yeah, I didn't dig all the 90s art. This is a pulpy book, and this is one where I really was aware of the pulpy elements and the inspiration from kind of Tarzan, Edgar Rice Burroughs era stories, where these were made for the masses. These were made for people who like kind of romantic, not sexual, but well, yeah, romantic is the right word. It's romantic, it's traditional, it's strong, muscle-bound men and beautiful women. But the beautiful women don't just sit there and cry and wait for the man. They're involved. And oh man, there was some panel where Shadowcat was talking about diversity and the importance of diversity. Man, I gotta find that. Okay, I'm gonna find this because it's too important for our boy DNC, right? Right. Whenever we see diversity in old comics, we gotta find that. Okay, Shadowcat. I'm looking for Kitty Pryde. Okay, it was when she was getting blasted. Oh, and Nazis were mentioned. Man, this was like so 2017-y here. All right, let's just read this little section. I mean, because it reminds me of how things go today. All right, so Icon says, I will start by eliminating the youngest, the weakest first. And Shadowcat says, how positively Nazi-esque. Why is it whenever anybody wants to start the perfect society, they always feel the best way is by destroying diversity? And Iron Man says, I'm sure I don't know. All right, so, this doesn't annoy me. You know why, anti-Comicsgate people? Because, now follow me here, people who like the Diversity in Comics channel, they kind of like diversity. And they kind of like comics. And I don't know. The vibe I seem to get is I haven't noticed any Nazis yet. We seem to hate Nazis. That seems to be a pretty unifying opinion amongst DNC followers. Not being too big a fan of National Socialism in Germany in the 1930s. Loving diverse characters. And loving the idea of intellectual, ethnic, and gender diversity in comics, so long as it's real diversity and it's not creating fake bad characters for the sake of signaling to everybody how woke and special you are, but not really telling a good story with a real character. Anyway, I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. So much social justice. Oh, I'm so triggered, guys, by all this social justice I saw in this comic. I love ya. Summa triggerum, summa spoilerum, summa tangentum. Catch you later.